Shunka ho, below your hey ho, Lakota ho, Chila o, tape, shunka ho, below.
Le Emmett Martin Jr. Majam. Na Gata, Ramlichikala down, Ichata, Good Shepherd, Apeche, Wacheko, Heti Majaka. Homoxilo, Heha, Tuakas, Buddy Makiam. To head Tokiskis, La Washichaki, nickname up Checha. Chash Buddy Martin Macham. Chechi Machaka. Here 1950s, Ata Ipiakal, Hechi, Niwao, na Atena hina, na Unchina Lala hina, ya Oba Imachare, na Hechi Tipchachi. Takus Nisnize na Ichunki no Opcha. Lakashes, Bloketu Chanas na, Worship Chanas na Uichaki. Takukus ni chaka, ma wagimisa na is blo na is smashni utapina na ujitka hinako ichaka to ichaki. Chawana ba July is August wahasna wana awojo piki tokes ke wochis man shoka anta sinata lala makina na hoya chachi ho makutnas na cham. Nou, toen is een gitaar, toen is een hoa, toen is het zo'n wak, hanky woechak, wat je, woechak, is een. Oh, zo wijn is een koekjes, precies wat je is een kaki in zijn barn, we hebben chatjes, organisatie. Zo heel, about 1955, zo let je. Oh, heel trok, ja, je moet zeggen, we choeien, wanneer let je ook wat shit je hebt. Heel, on in August, heel, wat toen is de August, heel, let him say wakachnik. Do washichu antasle. It means a different person, Washichu. Hetjes a wakachnik. Chihel unchib head na koki ke paha kota wa washichu anti. Ta takachap seto a wish the chap. Na he is etetka umechetka wazia Richter chap washichu. Hoas hetjes a wichab lutesen. Kcheni we oyat the hechab. Chete watons na wolut taku unchim hunters ta witka nice sampi hechon kipsta na tokes ate oborglak in this na hey we need some milk and eggs na so my dad would used to ate tokes oichaki takusni he go in the barn clean them or does some the horse trade not the kahintas. No mangi cha kaketa washitu in Richter's na hetu na kunkimnes na hetia takushnis ya rupi na isa wahampi na isa witke no kupsa as hekcha wungla ka me 20 washitu hecha na isa no khotaf ne kcha oyate hese huncha kcha oyate huncha che no hetu si macha cha hele to na to washitu apantes et Tokkeskin se on kahden minata ma hiekesni. Tämä sitja montes le a white man ja monte. Na is aimki is one who takes the fat of the land. No is from the word wahoshi ichu is somebody a messenger, China had wanale went to shakui wiktana shakui amashak pe wana iwahoni. Chahena oakakni to wichoye ki washichu abina. Hecho se mat oakakni. Chahemata, wamaichikala chata. Na le tioshpa ki omapkaki hea chariska ya white crow. Oakab na hea tokeskes rain in the face. Iteo marashu. Heunchatam. Na ko hea sitting bull abe na ko. Hechatam. Chahon oapka na tioshpa yabe. Chehetka kaki little oak yab hetcher, hetcho kichak. Chetia that OT that takes against team na le helpers na dog eagles na uses zeros na red eggs na taking lives na tokiskis looking backs ina obi machake cha you ha like hole wonglakam. Here like hole wonglakam pinklish ni kcha ekcha wonglakam, Mihe ablese ki ha tu la kholia hantas chala ki chala la kholia chi hina we choye ki na iglamanam na ki hib cha hina chala la kholia bogla ka unke khcha bogla ka he la khota ki lo washicha ki camp language amnan chechawana checho se bogla ka takushi se bogla ka hina se hina tokes kes Sponsni utapi tank ki chaka, chaku ke na kuisa wag miza ki lila haskas ke hechik se iwogla ka ikcha wogla ka che la khole wogla ka sni hoas le wana lampeto ki wana tua la khole wogla ka chimantas wachak wa pikte yabnes na taku heart kabe cha onsi o ap o 11 yabna chante ap cha he get chim che la khole tokes kes Ungaspeki ichumsni, se trogemuspep, Chahe lea ota la obi machake ki henachti na nium. Chaheto se unkospep, no unkokachnika. Tokeske le la kholiapi ki hina. Unkisa le trogeasna unkiukcham na unkokachnika. Chahe hino Tahono koki matas oichongekam neisa tuktel minicha panta sinaichakchikel imonglaka. Unchim as watos na hoch yoikep sin salecha trecha ke china tokes kesa woich khiki ke salecha chana hinda igogla ka unchim as ungoki hipsen sni salecha china unge just like macha chela wamli chikalata na ndakua tokes kesa wana chukas ke Ian chunkas ke Rock Creek. Shibula de pechina kui machaka. Chaheha yuhakel. Tuekas la khule woglaka. Tuekas takui woglaka chanas no skatap chanas nice tuktel. Wakhule manais hokoyam hantas la khule woglaka. Yua machaka Hoa sinzat khokia taku ablase he. 1950s taku my 6th grade stalecha he bule dikta. Ayo chakhyam na oba hushila ya tokes kes trabushka tapsa basketball nice baseball ina chekchun skatam niza wai pick up so waton le wayao ya toke yap cha fortest ya change na high school chacha one ya cha slowichu am hantas you are like kholia so ona wayao agli hantas like me chata wana after school cha agli oni chata letterman jacks umunes nata kila washiche woglaka As la kholia bina aistam. Onis na washitje wogalaka. Hela chalami job as lay mi chinkchunk chi wogalaka. How do you understand that? He said that's indoctrination. Chile trokeri tokeskis hoongsilab ata you piak skata be nuon kim nice wakul kim nice setuk che skam en or tuktela loonchim chande tuktetu cash wonta. Hina la khole woglaka. Hoas le wana wayao ya hantas. Naglihuni mata ta washicha. Tuni la kholesni. Isatap salecha ha mi ableseki. China trogia takushni la kholia ya pikina taku hechumsni andas misa ablese, Hoch isatap nice tokeskes Hankela kotab chaya uginas chazekap cheche, what chazeki havna cheche. Chahon tokes la kholia pichashin. La kholia ektu jamnesna isa ta ko washichu gluzam slecha, Chahon he albaze. Chahon wanale la kholia pi akukta la khashlash wanjia fut standing wakita LLC, Lakota Language Consortium, Hina wana Hoa se no spou chaka bina tokeskes woglala na si chanku ate hina woglaka hina hetu se spou chak mina wichwe ki hina si hina le trokia curriculum hina kaka bina wichasha and David Wood jabna Alan Taylor Colorado chata mina kaka chale LLC human hino pretrum chahina tako ablezap snihesh Lina, we choye ki research abha oglala na si chango heche se woglaka. Hoash for chait standing wakita glibna hina taku standard Lakota orthography getchim ash hechetusni. Insha slate kitat khoge wungla kap chen lily on the bullet nil Lakota. No man hina kennel for chase na cannibal hina Dakota wungla kap, Chachi hina tokish kishina ablizok ta cha. That's like when standing rock sitting bull college kita taku Lakole was pu chaka hunters one chak Lakota, Dakota u chak to zabina. Cha hina iza tokish kishina iza tokish kisha chante shitap no cheche no. Cha eu chak to zab. Cha iza wana le scum na ta taku mini chabnas na le iza Dakota language iwogla kap. Tokish kish uston chak ta Ina chuk to wana scum cha washte, Cha le un kisha le tokish kish Lakole peke hina na hakchi tokish un kicha kap sin na kish un kyop taps le cha wana. We're at the beginning, Leona. We don't assume that once you have a language that everything's all set. No, we're all learning. Even Albert Whitehead, who I respect a lot from Rosebud, he passed through when he said that, even him, he still learns Lakota every day, Like Hashishimiza Tako must be like Holawa Takata, Vine Marks, Sister Nichata. Chamiza had what was na Facebook wunglaka. Wichue one. Kcha. Wekaka wunglaka. How do you say elephant? Me had tokish dictionary black. Pute hanska, chin pute elephant pute hanska. Chinese tokish cabin, he said tipi that means, there's a little house that, when elephants come in a circus, they have a little hut or something. So to them, it's a tipi king, an elephant, So, but again, that goes to show you that it all comes down to interpretations, how we understand, And so I have a struggle with accepting dialects, which divides people anyway, And in my talks over the years as a language teacher, and I wanted to get it right because in a lot of places I've been, like in Pine Ridge and in Wakapala, even in my own reservations, the words that I teach, I've often been accused of saying that's wrong. Okay, fine. So I go back, I go there and I try to get to the people. So there was one word there was one incident where I got a lot of flack. Was the Wounded Knee, Chunkpe Opi massacre, So an old man, his grandson was a 10th grader who was taking my class, and told his grandfather, he said he kind of liked me because I was kind of crazy, Well, in my class, I used a lot of Richard Pryor or George Carlin approach, to as a teaching aid. So he come and said, he had a granddaughter too in the 8th grade. He said, I don't want you to be teaching the word watrecha, It doesn't mean leftovers. All right, so what does that mean? So I said, watrecha, it's a new deal. He said that word came out of 1930s, the federal Franklin Delano Roosevelt's alphabet soup program, like the CCC, the WPA, PWA, programs to alleviate the depression to provide employment, And so when it came to the reservation, something new, trecha, So what trecha is referring to those programs. But he said he didn't know how it became associated with watrecha, leftover food. So I said, okay, I learned something from him. And then to the same meeting, he said, and you teach about Wounded Knee? I said, yep. So the literature, the books that I had, talked about that. So he said, I want you to know, he said, that was a battle. He said, whoa, not a massacre. He said, it's a battle. He said, there's stories where there's little 5, 6-year-old boys took a piece of wood, fought back the soldiers who were shooting them with guns. He said, that's a warrior. That's a warrior. He said, that's a Lakota. He's fighting, for his life, for his people, for his relatives. He said, that's a warrior. So I thought about that, and I said, that's something different, Because I believe that same thing with history, where we're all victims of some kind, So I thought about that. And so I posted that exchange I had, with the elder from Spring Creek. And did I get attacked by people from Cheyenne River? I want you to know I had relatives who were killed and wounded. And so, but the difference is, we have to look at something in a way that helps us as people, as ourselves, as and understand things, because we can't go on forever blaming something that we can do ourselves, where like right now, I call that a victimization, where the white man told us that land was stolen from us. There was massacres and killings. And so we read it, we go to school, we watch the movies, we watch Hollywood's interpretation, TV's interpretation of it, and we act and behave like victims, and we start blaming. We start blaming. And I don't think our culture had that. I don't think our culture had that. Because to me, there was a concept called spatial thinking, which talks about the here and now, the present, lehantu. As opposed to linear thinking, where we have history, where the beginning, just like Genesis and then Revelations, in the Bible, we have that linear history. We don't have that. We just survived, adopted. Had the Lakota grew up in California, maybe a sacred thing would have been the banana or the orange instead of the buffalo kind of stuff, So anyway, all matter of interpretation, or the word uiaska, how you make clear. Uiaska to me is to make clear, because from what I gathered talking to some elders when we discussed this, that uiaska is someone that makes things clear, like interpreting a dream, because people had dreams. And so they were called to interpret the dreams, so which is why they call it uiaska. But since then, the relations with the United States and the tribes was always between some government or the army, so there was a need for interpreters. So that's where the uiaska came about. But somewhere along the lines, I think someone pinpointed it in the 1950s, where Iesca meant mixed bloods or breeds, and that's what created a lot of the tension we have now, because now, talking to some elders, I think according to Ala Deloria, children with white man's blood were called Washichu Chincha, Washichu Chincha, child of white men, But Iesca, that is a sore spot, because you look at a lot of the reservations and how many French names do we have? Like even my name, Martin, where did that come from? From what I understand about name Martin, my grandfather or great-grandfather was named Mathohothanka, loud voice bear. But because of the lack of a strong interpreter, they couldn't translate it, Mathohothanka. And so the next name they had that on the list was the M's, the Martin. So, Martin, Mathohothanka, it sounds the same, Supposedly I got that. That's how I got the name Martin, But look at it, look at all the names we have on the reservations. How many people have French names, And if we're so much native, we want to be real, maybe we should go back into discovering what our family names are in the back, It takes time. Just go look at go to the realty office and go look at the land records, but the families you broke up, where you get into. So that's where we need to kind of take a look at too, because I think this activism that we have, it creates more of a dissonance amongst our own tribal people, because we have a lot of fluent speakers or full-bloods who some of them feel they're being overlooked in discussing things cultural. They're not being addressed, they're not being approached for their input, because a lot of them are, again, Iesca or mixed blood, as they call them, and they rely on the romantic interpretation or the victimhood interpretation, where the white man took my land, the white man stole my land, my language, that kind of stuff. And as a result, they began, to this victim behavior and entitlement behavior. As I said before, I was telling the people here about a month and a half ago, when the Pope visited Canada to apologize for all the atrocities that happened in these boarding schools back in the day, and that there was a lot of instances where they were killed by, or died as a result of the actions taken by the white priests, the ministers, or nuns, whatever, And so, but at the same time, I said, we need, as Native people, we need to take responsibility for our part in that too, because our people, our Indian people, work for the government too in some capacity, in whatever jobs that we can get. And we are the ones that are also part of selecting, deciding what families whose kids we're to take, whose kids we should take. Maybe that person has a feud against this family, and so they want their kids to take away, so they put them on a list, and so that happens. So I said, as a Native American people, we need to take responsibility for our actions, our part in all this trauma that happened, because we need to stop blaming the government, the church, or the white man. We need to take responsibility for ourselves, Ina waka nika. Misa he tokas kisona lea kholawa wana isa wana to imaki. I think he's older than I am. We talked about this, and this is where we come to the understanding that Lakota, when you teach it, especially the language, and I think those are for you who are going to listen to or use the language. If you're going to teach Lakota, know yourself first, know yourself, because if you're going to rely on materials that are written by non-Indians, developed by non-Indians, we're just talking about translations now. We're not talking about talking Ikche Wokalaka or Lakota. We're talking translations. Because if you teach students using material, then you're just talking translations, It's like what I told you before, like the word washte. It's been interpreted as meaning good. But I talked to some people over the years, some fluent speakers, and they gave me examples of what washte, how they used it. And they told me that one grandmother said, Duechchile o winsha winsha glusta huntas he washte, or that car, lila washte, So that means it's an acknowledgement of something that is finished or completed, or in harmony, which is maybe a deeper thinking, than the word washte, So when we go and try to say things in Lakota, a good example of someone, a non-speaker, going to a dictionary because the dictionary says all the words, okay? They looked up the word for good, which is washte. They looked up the word for morning, which is hihani. So they put those together and hihani washte, and they think it's good morning. Albert Whitehead, there's a few others that also told me that that's not Lakota thinking, Lakota thinking is where, if there is such a greeting, they greeted each other according to their kinship terms, like how Lexi, Tawin, Jepranshi. That's a female term for a cousin, for a male cousin. Shich Eshi. No. Jepranshi is a female cousin of a female. Now, Shich Eshi is a male cousin of a female. Yeah. So that's how they interpret it. So to me, Chingxi is important because that means son. Chungxi is daughter. So I think in a culture, before all the influences, I think it was important to be a Chingxi, a good son, especially if you're firstborn. Same thing with a Chungxi, And then after, there's in the Dakota language, I think there's a name for the second born, third, fourth, fifth, born, and so there's a kinship term for every age group. And so when you know your kinship terminology, then you understand the role and responsibilities of what you are in a family. If you're the oldest one, part of your job is to help your little brothers and sisters grow, and they look at you. And if you're younger, most of your job is to listen, And so there's a word called wanach onke, the ones that listens well, obedient, And that's what I think a lot of the elders say. They talk about acknowledging a young man or a young boy doing something good, Wanach onke, It's like a grandma sitting there, and she talked to her granddaughter, Takosha, wakala biti imakichu, So that means imakichu, it means the granddaughter is standing right here and the pot's over there. So imakichu, that means go and get it, But if the granddaughter is already by the coffee pot, she said, Takosha, wakala biti magau, So in the language instructor, you have to differentiate the difference between, that. Imakichu is go get it for me because they're right here, or bring it to me because they're already there, Little things like that, Like I was just thought of this too, like bending over. There's 3 different words, like, paptuza, right? Paptuza is, it's like when you bend over and show your butt, right? Then there's patruja and pustaka. Okay, I are not familiar strongly with how each is used, but pustaka means bending over, or like patrusha. The only way I can think of is like going out a tent door. Remember those tents that we used to have, So when they're going down there, some big tall man was standing there. So grandma said, "Patrusha," So it means to bend over so he can go out the door, So that's how I use it. So words like this, where how is a student going to learn the difference between paptuza, patruja, and pustaka, So, the things like that. So Lakota language teaching is just beginning. So you need to, as a teacher, you need to really know the differences. Like there was one young lady that was teaching the language, and there's a word, chanashna, chanashna. First of the month, chanashna itomnipsa. First of the month, everybody gets drunk because, but the word chanashna is and so, But the girl teaching it, and she used the word December, chana osni. So that lady who was there, chana is, the private area. So don't be saying that. So you're supposed to say the whole word, chana shna, not just chana. Chana is the private part. So again, a little something that's it's mistaken or misunderstood, but it's a good thing the students didn't understand it. But the lady prevented that lady from saying chana only. It's supposed to be chanashna, chanashna kind of stuff. So little things like that where you need to be respectful of the language. There was a powwow at Liligo this year. There was an announcer, and he was saying, I think it's done in Rosebud or Pine Ridge, Toshke, they say Toshke. So there was the guy who works down there in Pine Ridge at the Ogallala Community College. He grew up in Bullhead, though, but he went up there and told that the announcer, he said, you don't say Toshke. He said, you say Tokeske, You say the whole word, Tokeske, So Tokeske ya unhe, how are you being, how are you, Now, you don't say Toshke, that's cutting it short, Just like some of the lady singers, they don't say we chog out there anymore. They say, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, I just we chod, I we chod at, at Bullhead or something like that. So they're cutting it short, which I think, to me, I agree. It's really disrespectful to the language, especially for the speakers, So that's why, like I said, we have some reservations, and so we need to let people know that these are things that need to be followed, to really speak Lakota. Because there we go again. Even the word fluent, how do we understand that? Are we fluent in English? Am I fluent in English? I don't know. So to me, fluency is being able to pronounce the word correctly, like hunkpapha. It should be hunkpapha. Hunkpapha, like tatranka. A lot of them say tatanka, tatranka. So, but in being able to converse, again, from my linguistic excursions, language proficiency, proficiency where you're able to converse in a language, So again, philosophical, there was all these programs that were coming on the reservations, but they're not coming from the inside. They're always coming from the outside because they want to save the language and the culture. And they went out to the Maoris, the Maori people out to the Pacific Islands, and they started the program. I think LLC or whatever. They were what do you call it now? The immersion. They did that, and they're bringing the language back. But a Maori said, all they're doing is translating English thoughts and phrases and comments using Maori words. He said, if you can't express a Maori thought in the Maori language, why are you learning the Maori language? I think the same thing can be applied to Lakota. Because if we can continue to say Hiani Washte and accept it as that, then we're kind of disrespecting their language. There's a lady from Pine Ridge, maybe you know her name is Arlette, I think she passed away. She's a fluent language. She's really outspoken about the language. I got on Facebook with her, and we was talking about this Hiani Washte, and she said, yeah, me too. She said, just so bad. She said, when someone says that to me, I said it right back. Here I am, a fluent speaker, and talking against that. But, it's kind of catchy. So maybe there's a possibility that's a new direction, that the language is going. We're expressing the English thinking. We're using Lakota words. That's what some of the elders said, like the LLC. They're not teaching Lakota. They're making Lakota a second language of English. A second language of English. So we have, because I don't think, I've never heard where someone says, "Tonik kahe," how are you? Or "Wanietu ni tonak chai," how old are you? They never, there's like anything else, there's boundaries and there's lines of respect that needs to be adhered to, otherwise, because a lot of our language leaders and the ones who are activists now, they want our children and grandchildren to speak Lakota. Well, I like what they're doing on Kaundi radio. They've got some little kids that are speaking Lakota and they're introducing themselves and they speak Lakota words and phrases. All right, fine, that's really good. But then I go back and I remember how I learned it. With always my peer group, my colas, we all talk Lakota. We was all crazy. We play baseball and we go shoot slingshots or whatever, But then we go to a meeting where there's elders speaking, where not elders, but Khchala, the older one, they speak. We quiet. We listen, We listen. We're not just talking this, this constant Lakota, which is what the non-Indians do. And so that's what they want. They said, no. So I said, humorously, I said, 90% of speaking Lakota is listening. And, that's basically it. You have to listen. Because the word for listen is anahoptan. From the two words, nuche and ptan. Ptan is bent over, nuche is ear. So you listen, And so even the words like, what was that? No, there's another one. Oh, yeah. Hihani washte. That means, owl, you are good. So, hiha is owl. Ni washte, you are good. So you're saying, hiha ni washte is owl, you are good. If you want to get it that technical, if you want to get it that literal, So I made that comment, it kind of caught on some of the Facebook, and they kind of enjoyed it because they never looked at it that way, But see, there was a lot of people that got into language dissection or interpretation. I think there's a guy named Jerome Kilspaw. He used to teach at the University of South Dakota. He was the first one that get into the breaking of the words, just like the words, English words, responsibility. Basically, that's ability to respond, right? So in Lakota, there's a guy named Francis Cutt that he mentioned to me. He said, Lakota, a long time ago, this must have been talking about the beginning, was only made of one syllable, one syllable. And so now we got words that are about, 2, 3, 4 syllables now, But so to me, that's growth and development where, like mini sni, cold water, Well, when you say mini, you already know it can be cold or hot or what is it, sipid or whatever that is, warm, something, we already know it's natural. So that's already understood. Just like when Grandpa used to tell me when I was a boy, oh, chetillo, that means I gotta take that little box out there and go out there and get some chips, get in there, put them in the stove, and get some kerosene and pour a little bit on there, and get a farmer match and lit it. Then boom, it goes up the fire. Okay, and then a little while later, you take the logs, then you put the logs in there. So that's chetchi. But you know what they teach LLC, the materials, they say, Preta unji karayo. Make a fire. Make a fire. Language, like you and I, we already understand things. Everything's natural. There's another example in that LLC. It says, Chonchega nupa yuha nawashi. I'm standing with 2 drumsticks. That's too literal. You already know you got drumsticks, Don't matter if it be 2 or 3 or 4. You're standing there. You must be going to a ceremony or get done. You're standing there with drumsticks. So I already understand it. I can read that. But to explain, I'm standing with 2 drumsticks, that's just too much. That's just too English, where we have to translate everything. Just like when I was younger. Buddy, don't kill alive. No habla, I'm going swimming, All right. The word for river is wakpa. They use that, wakpa. I didn't say wakpa iktable, If I said that, they don't know if I'm going fishing or swimming, or wash the car or whatever, So if I say nuable, that means they already understood. I'm going to that where we always go swimming, and I'll be going there with some friends, so I don't have to be whipped up swimming myself. So everything is already understood, But now, when we teach Lakota language, we assume that students really don't know anything, And so we have to explain. So again, the language is such that things are already understood. Like the word that I remember when you take apart is the word for south is itokakata. And the guy said it comes from words, 2 words. Ite, face, kaha is to make. Ite kaha. He said the reason why itokakata means is understood as south is because the Lakota were there. They went down to South America. And I don't know if it's the Mayas or the Incas or that made those big giant, statues or faces, for their temples, whatever, He said the Lakota went down there. It took them generations to go down there. They spent generations down there, but they were getting bigger, and there was water on 3 sides. And so the only way that they can return or go was to come back up north. So on the way back, he said they put those words together. Where'd you go? That direction where the people make faces, So along it, they came back the word shunka hishma, which refers to monkeys. Monkeys, And then the word for sugar, chahumpy. Cha word humpy, is it soup or juice, So they're talking about the sugar cane. Isn't that what they do? Sugar cane, you squeeze that and the sugar comes out. So they saw that. So that's where that word came from. Chahumpy, I think same way. I don't know the word for chunli, for tobacco, But in Lakota language, if you really get into it, I'm pretty sure it's true of all other native languages too, but there's a lot of history and geography in those words. So a Lakota instructor really wants to get the students to learn. They need to do a lot of research, into a word or a phrase. Because to me, every Lakota word has a story to it. Like the word for 9. Wanchi nupa yamni topa zapta. Shakpe. Shakoi. Shaglocha. Wikchamana. Or napchunka. Okay, when you go like this, napchunka is number 9. It comes from the word nape, which is hand. Kichi is with, iyunka is to lie down. So you go like this, wanchi nupa yami topa zapna, shakpe shakui shagloka, napchiunka. So they're talking, napchiunka. I never thought of that. So that's how they defined it in number 9. And I'm pretty sure there's some stories about Wanchi, which is kind of like risque, where, you might get into that. Nupa is to, like Nupa, it's like Oompa, I mean lying together, Nupa, And Yamani is like, I think there was some kind of a structure outside of a teepee they put, that was made up of three, and so they hung dry meat there or something like that. Supposedly that's what happened. And Topa, I think it's like a door, Topa, door, four sides, And Zapta, again, Ptan's in there, And Shakpe, maybe there's something with the Kpe, like Shakowi, not Shakowi, but Shakpan, Shake, Shake Kpe, that kind of stuff, So there's a story for everything, So right now, I think we need to go beyond teaching Lakota from one-to-one to actually getting into the stories themselves. One-to-one, I mean, Wanchi means one. That's another thing, too, I understand. In my learning, in my understanding. Wanchi, when you say Wanchi, that means you do that only in counting. You say Wanchi and only in counting. You say Wanshi when you say like one boy, one dog. Hokshila Wanshi, Shunka Wanshi, So the difference is this one. Wanchi is just the one. And Wanshi is one boy or one day or, that kind of stuff. So little differences like that. But in Standing Rock, where I grew up there, they say Wanshi. They say Wanshi for in counting. Wanshi Nupa Yamani. But I like that. There's something strong about that. I lean that way where Wanchi is used in counting only, And Nupa and Yamani and so on, So there's a story, Now, getting into translations, about how someone asked me, how do you say rummage? Rummage sale? I don't know. I really don't know. And another one is sandwich. How do you say sandwich? We thought it was like this. All the Lakota speakers looked. And there's finally a friend of mine from Pine Ridge, Robert Tukro, he said this, Ahuyapi tchalo chunhiapi, Chunhiapi. It's just the bread, the meat, and they cook it or something, they make a sandwich, And somebody came up with the word for cheeseburger. Holy smoke, that's about this long. Holy smoke. Who wants to spend time saying cheeseburger? But that's one of my friends also said that, a lot of people, again, rather shorten words than, say the long words. Because Lakota, I like to go back to the Lakota before clocks and calendars, where everything was here and now, not so much in a hurried way, where now even the sun dances are held on weekends now, so people can, come to the Sundance and Sundance, that kind of stuff, So back then, I think that's a learning process, the difference between things the way they were back then and things the way they are now, And somehow we need to get across that's just growth and development. That's it, So to me, a person should be able to admit that, well, I'm part, I'm part French or I'm part Scottish or part Spanish or whatever, Should be able to say that because once we talk about tribalism like Indian, we all succumb to trying to fit that description of what an Indian is, It's like this one cartoon where how do you picture a Italian or a Russian, everything else, and had the images, the contemporary images. But when they say Indian, what do you see? Feathers, So we're stuck in the past. So that's our goal right now. The goal right now is not so much to educate people, but help yourself grow. Be strong on who you are so you can demonstrate that, It's like the word yoniha, yoniha. I think we do too much of that right now. We do too much of that because we bought into the idea that we lost something. The white man stole whatever. We lost something, so we have to heal. I don't think so. We never lost anything. To a lot of us and a few of us that talked about it, we never lost anything. We didn't know if land was lost. We weren't there. We weren't there at the Little Bighorn. We weren't there at the Wounded Knee. So how do we know? Because when I was a boy, my grandfather never set me down. Said, "Okay, this is the 7 sacred ceremonies, and this is the 7 council fires." They never did that. So over the years, as I was going into this Lakota studies, the cultural studies, I went to a meeting in Rapid City, and we were all into this Ocheti Shakong, which everybody takes as real, but the elders I talked to, they never heard of it. Well, there was a line. There was that now. There was, I think, how do they say torch now? Is it Chanshuste or something like that? Chanshuste. She said there was Chanshuste Shagaloha. Well, anyway, there was 8 torches rather than Ocheti Shakoi, Now, if you talk to a really old speaker, like maybe my age or older, and if you say Ocheti Shakoi, and a lot of you understand it differently, 7 council fires, but they'll say, what, 7 stoves? Because Ocheti is a stove, right, But somehow the current understanding is they took it at a different level in 7 council fires. So now we got Ogalalas and Hopapas and Sichongs and 4 bands in Shine River, What are the 4 bands anyway? Is that Itasip Cho, O Henupa, Minikoju, and Sehasapa, right? Yeah. So, but who decided those were the bands? Like I said, back in 1999, when I started changing my thinking about this cultural thing, there's a friend of mine from Spring Creek, Eustace Nightchill, so we were taking classes for a master's program out of STSU, and we met in Baseland. There was a college there, so we met over this. We had classes. So one evening we went over there, we were talking about it. We had these classes going, so we started talking about that. And we started talking about the inclusion of cultural studies. So we stood outside and we're having a smoke, and Eustace said, all of us said, Deutsche Hayahe. I said, who said that? I said, Daku. He said, what? Who said we had 3 dialects? Who said it? Who said we had 7 sacred ceremonies? Who? And thought about it, and he had a point. We learned it from English. We learned it because someone wrote it in English and defined our culture. So now we have a lot of people going on and say, well, I'm Dakota and I speak Nakota. I don't think so. Like you go down Liligo and Bullhead. I grew up in both places. There's different ways of saying cold. Like, Lilo Snee is really cool. I think in Liligo they say Ijat Sni, In Bullet they say Pancheo Sni, So again, indicating there's a different way of saying it's very cold, And then even the manner how you say Lila Sni. Lila Sni, maybe you're talking about temperatures in the 30s, right? Lila Sni, maybe you're talking temperatures in the 10 degrees, right? And you said, Lilo, you're talking below 0 temperatures, So again, the manner of how you communicate, not only your body language, but the tone of your voice, And then who you are as a gender, makes a difference in Lakota. But I don't think anybody really gets into those where, look, you teach Lakota, well, I can do that, yeah. Because what do you got? You got materials, you got CDs, you got workbooks. So you can do that. You're supposed to be teaching, but what are you teaching, Do we teach the language? Now, I'm not trying to be discouraged. I'm trying to encourage people to look at themselves as to why. Why are they teaching Lakota language? Why are you teaching it? First of all, to me, Lakota is spoken by the elders, the Kchala, because they earned the vocabulary. In my time, right now, I've listened to people that are in the 50s and 60s speak Lakota, but they're using dictionary words. They haven't earned them. You can tell because they're out of context. It's like a 3rd grader using college-level words. That's how it sounds. So as a speaker, as a listener, you begin to differentiate, what's someone trying to say. Because in Lakota, when you speak Lakota, when you hear the Chala talk, you know it's pretty heavy. Especially when they pray, you know that they know what they're saying. They know what words to put together, how to use words to express the thought that they're saying. Like say for when people are having a tough time, like say weather-related sickness of some kind, you know how to use their words. But the younger ones, all they got to do is go to dictionaries, and it sounds good, and that's what they want to do. They want to do a picture where, okay, listen to me using these big words. To me, that's not helping, Lakota, because you're being something you're not. Be who you are right now, because I think in my language, and you can probably tell by now, and I know that there'll be a lot of fluent speakers watching this, but you can tell my vocabulary is at the 7th or 8th grade level in Lakota, because it was then that I started majority speaking English. And that's where there was a man who died recently. He used to be a fluent speaker. He was a minister. And he got around. He lived in Mobridge, Aberdeen, Pier, whatever. And when he was given a chance to speak at a graduation in Wakpala, he got up there and began to speak Lakota. He started kind of like herky-jerky. In Lakota, say glushnashna wuglak. I mean, he was beginning to drop his word. He forgot the pronunciations, That's because he didn't speak Lakota for a long time. So in Lakota, you got to use it or lose it kind of thing, where you have to speak the language. And so to me, listening is really the important thing of learning Lakota, saying the right way with fluency, Like, I'd rather hear someone say tathanka than tatanka, There's another word that they really have struggled with. I can't think of it now, but yeah, those are just some of the my experiences. Again, these are my interpretation. These are my understandings right now. I am 76 winters old, or young, whatever you want to go. And this is my understanding of the words. Now, a lot of young learners, a lot of speakers, will probably debate as to how I understand words, but those are my interpretations. Those are my interpretations now, because when I grew up in Lakota, everybody spoke Lakota, so it was accepted. It was natural. It was okay. And we talked. And I remember the behaviors of the boys that I grew up with, the guys. They all passed away now, but when we were around other older folks, like our grandmas and grandpas, uncles and aunts, we didn't say anything. We got quiet. We did mostly listening. It's like we were outside playing baseball one time. In the wintertime, this was New Year's. It was a nice day. But at the churches, they used to have a New Year's, feed, where they would come in and New Year would chase out the old year, So old year would really be kind of have a gunny. I know they used to have a gunny sacks, they make faces out of them, they dress up. And so here we go. All of those guys, just acting tough and everything else. And then somebody knocked on the door, boom, 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 about 10 to 12, And everybody looks over, pretty soon they open the door and that guy comes in. And all my friends, even me, we kind of laughed, but one of those nervous laughs, we were really scared. And some of our friends actually started crying because the guy. Well, anyway, they came in, it goes around the room and everything else is scaring everybody, everybody's the older ones are laughing. Just then, there's another knock on the door. And then the New Year comes in. Usually at that time, they had diapers, the cloth diapers. Or sneeze cut, they come in there. But they come in like that. And those I remember most, but the discussion with everything was Lakota. Okay, when I say Lakota, I'm going to take it at a higher level. When you say Lakota, when you speak Lakota, when you talk to other people who talk Lakota and your conversation is all Lakota, you realize that you're part of something that's really good. You are part of something. When I first went down to Todd County to teach down there, and I knew of Elwood Whitehead because he used to help me. He helped me get my degree. And even then, Albert, the way Albert says, "How, Emmett? Okay, and it makes you feel accepted, part of something. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Like so there's no fear, no worries, nothing. It's just, hey, we're doing something here. We're communicating in Lakota. And so that, as a person, makes me feel good. That's why I kind of hesitate outside of this one here, to go in front of a group and talk about Lakota, because I know, like everybody else, you're going to be taken to task. Oh, it's not what I meant. Even the word for U.S. I said it means interpreter to me. To me, it's made clear. There's some ladies. To me, it means translator. Whoa. Okay, all right, that's all. But again, how you interpret things, it's a Yeska, it's someone that makes something clear, like even talking to your grandma and grandpa, that's Yeska, because grandma's gonna make you feel part of something by helping you learn something. Because to me, you learn Lakota because you want to. When you teach. When you learn Lakota, being taught, then you're dependent on the instructor, So what you learn is, learn. And I have to mention this guy's name, Peter Hill. You know him? Peter Hill. Now, this guy from Pennsylvania, he came out and he wanted to learn Lakota. He took the classes. He got a certain way, but he wasn't comfortable. So what he did was he became friends with some of the people in the community who spoke Lakota, and he immersed himself into that environment. That's how he picked Lakota. There's a friend of mine from Eagle Butte, heard Peter talk. He said, Ata, you still my. He said, Lakota. He did, He just talked Lakota, just fluent, just, got the mannerisms, got the right moments when you tell the humor and everything else, It was really good. And some of the comments he made about his wife, being married, it was like I'm hearing my uncle talk, that kind of stuff. So he picked it up. So it can be done. But I think because he wanted to learn, he went about his way to learn it, which is mean going to where? It's where it's spoken, So to me, I think when you go to a class, then, all right, what page are we going to go on now? What chapter? I forgot to do my vocabulary words, that kind of stuff, So yeah, but I had no training where I know what ablaut means, again, LLC, conjugation, third person, first person, all this kind of stuff, IPA, International Phonetical Alphabet, orthographies, I'm familiar with about 2 or 3 for orthographies, And there's one from a lady named was Violet. She's worked her own orthography using the X, for the guttural sound, So those I'm familiar with. So, like I said, I've been away from teaching for about, 12 years now, I still kind of learn. I talk to some of the people who talk Lakota. So, and we discuss about a lot of things like this, And I'm going to say again, remind again that these are my interpretations. Let them say Wakachnika right now, because there is no such thing as, to me, there's no such thing as a standard Lakota, because Lakota, like down in Palm Ridge, I don't know if you heard this, but there was a guy named Dwight. He said that, Ata happy shung prestolas e washkate, Shung Prestola, so what the heck does that mean, Well, Shung Prestola, to me, I think is a greyhound, So what he was saying was he played quickly or fast like a greyhound, I think it was softball or something, I never heard that. And I was talking to my friend Robert. They never heard the word poho. Poho. Poho, P-O-G-O. Poho is it's a meeting. It's a kind of a impromptu meeting by elders. They sit in front of them. They talk about issues affecting the community, and then they eventually go home. They discuss it with their wives. I think it's the wives that kind of start initiate things that need to be changed. But Robert never heard of that. So again, there's a lot that we don't know about Lakota. There's a lot more that's out there beyond the dictionaries. So that's one thing I said, so if you're going to be a teacher, be aware of who you are, where you're at, because if you go in there, you're going to lose control. And once you lose control, the students are going to get boring. And pretty soon you're going to end up computer time, TV time, movie time, free time, because you're going to be drained. The students aren't going to learn, and you're going to lose them. And to kill time and go through it, maybe starting in October, maybe starting in February, your class is gonna be cool because it's movie time and you can get on their phones. Oh, you're the best Lakota teacher I ever had. Well, sure, I'll let you play. That's why. So again, like I said, know yourself and be prepared. Igluing it up. I mean, I think that's what it means. Get yourself ready. Chauna ta ima pusena homa kita cha. Una le ihang kektai.